Hey y'all, thought I would go live for a minute as I have literally coming off of a pretty intense weekend where I was in a position to do a lot of reflection and doing some work for myself. And so I wanted to have a conversation around power and integrity today, and wanting to talk about what power really is and talking about how integrity fits into that equation. I think we have a lot of conversation around power and, this idea that I hear a lot of people talk about, which I think is sort of a oxymoron in the sense that I don't believe in leading from a place of fear. I don't think leadership comes from a place of fear. So when people talk about, oh, they're leading from fear, they're not leading. I also think about the statement around power over. Real power is not something that we put over people. When we talk about power over, that is actually a force. That is actually a space of deep insecurity, deep fear, and it's a projection place that we are exerting this force. We are exerting this shit that doesn't feel well, and we're putting that on other people. Real power is something that comes from within. Power is that space of standing in your own truth. Power, real power, is something that we first bring forward from within ourselves, and then it's power with, right? It's a collective opportunity for us to stand in a space where our truths are resonating, and that comes from a deep place of integrity. And so when you think about integrity, let's talk about that first. Let's break this down for a minute, right? Power and integrity. I think it's really interesting. And I think there was something I read once as I was doing some work that talked about, and I love this phrase that said, power demands responsibility. So let's talk about that. First and foremost, in order to get to power demands responsibility, I think we need to talk about the fact that we need power with integrity. And so integrity is that space of wholeness. It's that space of entirety. It's that space that says, it's space that truly demands when you're in integrity, when you are clear about who you are, what you stand for, what resonates for you, what you desire, what your moral, which direction your moral compass is headed, where your due north is, your core values. When you know that and own that, and again, there's that ownership piece, right? When you stand in that space, that integrity demands that your words, your actions, your deeds, your intentions are aligned to consistently reflect your highest desires, your highest aspirations, your deepest truths, and your most cherished values. And I have no idea why on Instagram I've got this fuzzy background. Somehow I must have hit the wrong thing. So anyway, I guess you guys get me in a blurred state today, or at least the background. No big deal. So I say that because integrity is a space that says I'm deeply connected into what I hold to be my truth, what I hold to be the things that I value most. What are my highest aspirations? What are the deepest truths within me? And what are those cherished values that I know that when I am in that space, that my due north is like, just, it's crystal clear. And so when we stand in that space for integrity, there comes a deep sense of responsibility. And for those of you that have followed me, I talk about leadership is ultimately and fundamentally a choice, right? It is a space and function of three things. It's a function of how you choose to show up. It's a function of how you choose to serve others. And it's a function of how you choose to take personal responsibility inside those spaces. That is the integrity piece of leadership that says, I take responsibility, 100% responsibility for my intention, for my beliefs, for what I say, for what I think, for what I do. I take ownership of me. Now, that being said, the space of integrity and where we have the opportunity to stand in our truest power is in taking that responsibility and understanding that power and integrity are connected. Again, power being that thing that comes from within us. I love even the word empowered, right? You think about the word empowered. We talk a lot about, I want to empower this group of people. I want to empower. Empowerment in and of itself is something like motivation, right? It's something that happens by choice, that we choose to stand in our own personal power. No one can actually empower you. It is something that you choose to hold as a truth for yourself that says, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know what integrity means for me. And I'm choosing to stand in that space and take responsibility for what shows up as a result. And so when we talk about integrity, it's that space that demands that you are in a place of wholeness for yourself, so that what you say, what you think, what you believe, what you do is aligned with the things that you hold most true and the highest values that you have for yourself. And so, that being said, power is something that only we have within us. The problem is in too many ways, especially in our culture, in the ways our systems are designed, in the ways we think we're leading, we think we exert power over in order to make things happen. And what happens is that's not power. That's not real power. That's force. That's resistance. That is projection. And it is coming from a place of fear, insecurity. It is not coming from a place of leadership. Power, real power, is not something someone can take from you. It is something that we have been choosing to hand over, sometimes unconsciously, based on our programming, our culture, our conditioning, you name it, the stories we tell ourselves. We are handing our power over and not learning how to stand in that integrity to lead ourselves first. And so if we're going to change the game, if we're going to start to disrupt and change what it means to lead, and right now there is a really big call around leadership that is coming through. There is a deep need for a new level of leadership to rise. And in order to do that, we individually need to learn how to lead ourselves first. And it starts with us taking back that personal power to know that power, real power, demands responsibility. It says, I am 100% responsible for the things that I am attracting, the things that are happening, and the things that are going on in my life. Even if they don't make sense, if there's things you're like, well, I didn't, energetically, we are calling those things to us. And so it's interesting because when you realize that real power is rooted in your truth, it's rooted in that space of integrity. There are three things I want you to remember. Three things that you get to say to yourself. One is, no one is doing this to me. Whatever this is, whatever situation, whatever circumstance. And I say this as somebody who was bumping up against some shit this weekend and over the past few weeks. And we're coming out of an astrological new year, and there's some energy that's wanting to be released. And I came up against some of my old patterns and some of my old stuff, particularly around money this weekend. It was very interesting. Some of my codependency threads, some of the things that are repeat shadows that show up for me to continue to grow and evolve as a leader and do the work that is really, it's my work to do, right? And so what was interesting was I had to sit in a place of real deep responsibility and think about the fact that nothing that was showing up, whatever was coming into my life that was having me kind of butt up against it or feeling like, oh, I'm getting kind of spun around in a washing machine again, none of that's being done to me. And so there is a space where we stand, and I think it was T. Harv Eker that said once that there are three ways we show up, and we're playing victim if we can say that we're yes in any one of these spaces. And so one is there anywhere in your life where you're still blaming someone? And so if there are circumstances, situations, if there are things that are not desired that are happening in your life right now, who are you blaming? And I say that because I got caught up in my own blame game this weekend, which is part of why I was bumping against some shit that was just feeling, like seriously, I feel like I've been down this street a few hundred times and oh my God, here we go again, right? And that's the beauty of your shadow work. It comes back and there's just layers of it, and it's part of the gift that we get to stand in. But I say that because it was really interesting for me to recognize, oh shit, here I am, I'm playing the blame game again. And so I say that because we don't even realize sometimes when we're pointing that finger out, and whether in any way, shape, or form that we're saying they did this to me, he did that, she did this, you, and we're not taking full responsibility to recognize that no one is doing this. And again, insert this with whatever situation, condition, challenge, circumstance, unfavorable thing that's happening in your life right now. No one is doing this to you. And so I've had to sit in that first statement around, no one is doing this to me. No one is doing this that's going on in my life to me. I am doing this to myself. So the first thing that we have to recognize when we stand in our power, and when we recognize that power demands responsibility, is to own the fact, and I'm going to say this from my point of view, and I'm going to put it back into perspective for you as well, that I get to sit in the space that says no one is doing this to me. Thereby, nobody is doing this to you either, right? And so nobody is doing this to me. That's the first piece. The second piece then is to say, or to realize and feel into, if nobody is doing this to me, then I'm doing this to myself. Let me tell you, this is the one that kind of kicked me sideways this weekend. And literally, I had, hey, Neil. Yes, it can be. Oh, I am into that. It can be so difficult to recognize our own shit. And sometimes victimhood is easier. I love that you said that, because I don't know if any of you know my friend Neil. He is quite a thought leader, and he is out there creating spaces and has quite a voice in leadership as well. And I think, it's easy for people to say, oh, that's easy for you. And I think what we need to understand is we all feel this. I really had to sit in this shit this weekend, because it kind of kicked me. It kicked me hard. It actually kicked me. I had to pull out completely. I needed to take a little breather this weekend, because I was feeling extremely frustrated, and I was feeling all kinds of anger. And by the way, if any of those emotions are showing up, especially, if you look at your human design or whatever, I know that if frustration or irrational anger shows up, it means I am out of my alignment. And so it means that something is showing up that I probably have an opportunity to sit in and take my own responsibility for, right? And so, yes, it is oftentimes easier because, again, like I said, it's an unconscious thing sometimes. It's also a pattern that we get caught up in. And I will tell you that I was really, my mom and I had a huge conversation this week, and I just broke down, and I'm like, oh my God. I am playing victim in all these areas. And so when I thought about, nobody is doing this to me, nobody is doing this, whatever this situation, and it's just been kind of shitty lately, with some energy and some things that I'm blocking, and I couldn't understand why there was this resistance. And then I went, oh, because nobody's doing this to me. I am doing this to me. And I had to sit in the truth. And this is really hard sometimes. And this is why I will say that while leadership is everybody's opportunity, this is why most people choose not to step into it. It's because the responsibility part kicks our ass. It's because the responsibility part is not easy. It's because when you sit in the space of the truth that recognizes I am the one responsible for this shit show that's showing up. I am the one, even if unconsciously, I am energetically at the frequency and vibration of what I just called forward. Because here's the thing, the universe really, truly is ultimately here and designed to support you in every way. Hey, Kyle. The one thing that we don't realize is that we inadvertently or unconsciously oftentimes are putting energy that is at a lower frequency or a lower vibration that then is calling to us the very things that we don't want. And one of the ways we do that is through our language. And it was one of the things my mom and I were talking about this weekend, as we were realizing where we were playing victim in some capacities and playing the blame game. And, the first space, again, to go back to the thing T. Harv Eker says around, here's the 3 ways you're playing victim. If any of these are showing up, and oftentimes it's more than one of them, if any of these things are showing up, you're still playing victim in some capacity. And one is the blame game. If there's anywhere in your life you are blaming something or someone, and so it can be you're blaming the world, you're blaming someone in your family, you're blaming whoever you're blaming. If you're blaming someone, you are sitting in that space of victimhood. The other place is if you find the need to rationalize, justify, explain, or apologize why you are not holding yourself accountable in the very thing you said you were going to do. Again, it's that integrity piece. When you are trying to justify why you're not standing in your own integrity, we're playing victim. And again, I'm saying this with a bit of a sigh, because this is all the shit that came and kicked me in the ass this weekend. Again, sitting in why I was feeling a little out of alignment, and why I was feeling like some things keep bumping up, and some things I need to adjust, right? Like victimhood creates awesome pity parties, doesn't it? Yeah, for sure. And we can make excuses as to why we deserve the pity party. And so that's the justification when we're like, yeah, but you don't understand. Yeah, but I deserve to be blah, blah, blah. And so we play the pity party, and then we justify the pity party. And that all is keeping us in that very low vibration, that very low frequency of victimhood. And the third one, and this one kicks me in my ass more than the rest of them, but the other two were definitely present, especially this weekend and the last couple weeks, is the one around complaining. I am a chronic complainer. I'm just going to put that out there. I love to bitch and think I'm doing it from a, kind of funny, comedic Why not just kind of like bitch and moan, and kind of like, we live in this culture that's all about complaining and commiserating. Think about it for a minute. Our conversations with most people are, hey, and I'll use Neil since he's been showing up and commenting, and I'll say something like, hey Neil, how you doing? And Neil might say something like, oh Candy, you have no idea. He wouldn't probably say this to me, but I'm just going to use him as an example. Oh my God, you have no idea. I've got 14,000 things going on. I've got this, and the kids. I'm trying to write my book, and I got kids activity this weekend, and oh my God, there's just no time to breathe. And me, because I want to be, connected to Neil, and I want to lean in, I respond back and I said, oh, please, Neil, you think you're busy? Let me tell you how busy I am. Oh my God, you got 14,000 projects. I got 16. I got this going on. Oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I can't even begin to tell you. Oh my God, my kids are acting up. This is happening. And we got the in-laws in, and whatever it is. And we have created. So think about this for a minute. And I've said this so many times, but it's really been hitting me lately. We live in this culture of complaining and commiserating, not connecting and communicating. And so we have created a metric of success. You want to talk about the ultimate victim mentality that we are all absorbed in half the time. It's this victim mentality that says, my life sucks more than yours, I win. So think about it. The whole metric of success in our culture right now is who can outsuck who. Like, legitimately, we have this culture about, I'm busier, my life sucks more, I'm more exhausted, I'm more tired, and we think that's some kind of freaking badge of honor. Talk about not being in integrity with ourselves, not being in a space that feels aligned, is because we think we got to keep outdoing Joe Blow down the street. And I want to say, this is some of the stuff that bummed up against me this weekend, was the recognition of, where am I taking undue responsibility and the need to control, so that whatever perception or whatever is happening, I can just make it happen. Oh my God, that's exhausting. Can I just tell you how exhausting was when it starts to come back and catch up and bite you in the ass? It's exhausting to play in a victim mentality. Yet we all are susceptible to it. All of us, anyone that stands in any kind of space of leadership, any parent that's out there, any person who has responsibility for themselves and probably someone else in some capacity, you feel this. We hit into this because sometimes it's just easier, as Neil just said, sometimes it's really easy to just stay in the victimhood because you're exhausted, you're burnt out. And what happens is, the more and more we stay in that victim mentality, the more and more we move ourselves out of integrity. And the more and more we lose the real sense of power that is within us. Because power is not something outside of us. Power cannot be given away unless we choose, even if it's unconsciously, to give it away. And there is no such thing as power over. That is force, that is projection, that is fear and insecurity. Real power is something that allows you to stay in that space of sovereignty, that space of, I know my truth, I'm standing in integrity. Real power is within and with. And it is only when we recognize that nothing and no one is doing this to me, I am doing it to myself. And the third piece of that then is, therefore, I have the ability to change it. And so I want you to see the magic in this kind of conversation that we forget. Because when we stay in the space of, Neil, I love the awareness of when a person begins to take 100% responsibility for their life, right? That's where the magic is. And that's what we have forgotten so many times. One of the easiest ways to come back home to yourself, to that comment, is to take 100% responsibility for your life. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, the shit shows and all. When you recognize that nothing and no one is doing this to you, that you are the one, even if unconsciously, because you're in the patterns and the programming, and it's time to hit the pause button. You've just been on the hamster wheel. And here's the thing, I get it. And I want you to offer. So here's the thing. You can move out of victimhood without it being the, oh my God, take 100% responsibility, kick yourself in the ass and go. No, I want you to do it with the place of space and grace. I want you to bless and release what no longer serves you. I don't want you to do this from a place of shaming and judgment all over yourself or self-deprecation. I want you to do this from a place of realization of what's possible. And to Neil's point, it's amazing when you watch that light come on, when you see that person take 100% responsibility for their life and recognize, oh, thanks, Neil, for recognizing that you have the ability at any point to change it. And here's the thing. Free will, choice, they are the most beautiful gifts we've been given, because the universe, while it's here to support us, the other truth around that is the universe will never interfere with our free will. What happens is oftentimes we put out what we think we want, and then all of our fear, all of our stories, all of our shit comes back, and it shuts us down, and it pulls us out of our own leadership. It pulls us out of integrity. And then we start to freak out and we think we got to control. And the more we try to like hold on to things, and I know this because control is one of my shadows. When I feel like I got to do it for everybody. And so lately I've been finding myself back in the space. And again, I know I've talked a lot about human design, but just to acknowledge that my gate 21 is all about this need to control and to find the resources for my tribe. The gift is when I realize that it's not my responsibility to fish for everyone. It's in teaching them how to fish and understanding that there's plenty of resources for all. And we can stand in the authority of knowing we are fully taken care of. Well, I have been bumping against, just due to some things going on, that I need